The Sterling ballroom glittered with champagne flutes and designer gowns. Whispers rippled through the crowd when Alexandra Sterling entered with him. Jonas Vale, a man in a simple gray suit. No cufflinks, no watch worth mentioning. He looked like someone who had wandered in from a coffee shop. But when the groom, Clement Sterling, turned to kiss his bride, Clarissa, he froze. His eyes locked on that ordinary man. The color drained from his face. He released Clarissa's hands and walked toward Jonas. The ballroom held its breath, unaware that this seemingly mismatched pair held the key to Clement's fortune and Alexandra's freedom. But that moment, the one where everything shattered, came later. 3 weeks before the wedding, Jonas sat in the corner of Brew and Page's, a bookstore cafe tucked between a dry cleaner and a bakery on Maple Street. The place smelled like old paper and espresso. He came here every Tuesday and Thursday morning after dropping his daughter at school. No one bothered him. No one knew him. That was the point. He had a paperback open in front of him. Something about the Cold War, but he was not really reading. He was just sitting, existing. The cafe was nearly empty. A college student typed furiously on a laptop near the window. An older man read the newspaper by the register. And then the door opened. She walked in wearing jeans and a loose sweater, her hair tied back in a ponytail. No makeup, no jewelry. She looked tired. She ordered a black coffee and sat at the table across from him. Jonas glanced up briefly, then back at his book. She did not look at him at all. That was how it started. Not with conversation, not with introduction, just two people occupying the same quiet space. She came back the next week. Same table, same coffee, same tired eyes. This time she brought a laptop and worked in silence. Jonas did not ask what she did. She did not ask what he was reading. It was an unspoken agreement. This place was neutral ground. The third week, she forgot her charger. Her laptop died halfway through whatever she was working on. She sighed and closed it, leaning back in her chair. Jonas kept reading, but he could feel her restlessness across the room. "Do you ever feel like the world is too loud?" she asked suddenly. Jonas looked up. She was not looking at him. She was staring at her coffee cup. "Every day," he said. She smiled faintly. "Good. I thought it was just me." That was the first real thing they said to each other. Her name was Alexandra. She did not tell him her last name. He did not ask. He told her his name was Jonas. He did not mention his daughter. She did not mention her work. They talked about books, about the weather, about nothing important. And it felt like the first honest conversation Jonas had had in years. After that, they fell into a rhythm. Tuesdays and Thursdays, same cafe, same corner. Sometimes they talked, sometimes they did not. Alexandra never wore anything expensive. She never mentioned money or business or the life Jonas assumed she had outside this place. And Jonas never mentioned the fact that he was raising a child alone or that his life was a carefully constructed routine designed to avoid attention. Early one morning, Jonas was in his small, cozy apartment, the aroma of toast and eggs mingling with the scent of old paperbacks. His daughter, Louisa, 8 years old with bright, curious eyes, chattered happily as she ate her cereal. Jonas packed her lunchbox, adding an extra apple slice, knowing it was the small, consistent acts of care that anchored their quiet life. He dropped Louisa off at school, sharing a quick hug that always fortified him for the day. He cherished these moments of normalcy, the quiet rhythm of their life. Later at the cafe, Alexandra returned, looking more polished in a blazer, a subtle contrast to her usual casual wear. She sighed, her exhaustion barely masked. She confessed to Jonas, without specifics, the suffocating nature of her family life and the relentless demands of her work. "My family thinks all I do is work," she said, her voice tight with frustration. "They are right, but the second I try to do something for myself, they have opinions about it." Jonas listened intently. He understood more than she could ever know. His mind drifted to 12 years ago, to a different life. He remembered the elegant, sprawling house, the endless parties, the dazzling smile of his then-wife, Amanda. She had loved the shimmer of it all, the connections, the power, the endless pursuit of more. He had given her everything, believing that was what love looked like. But then their daughter, Louisa, was born. And suddenly, none of that mattered to him anymore. He wanted quiet. He wanted time. He wanted to be a father, not a bank account. He recalled Amanda's escalating ambition, her cold determination to build her own empire using his name and his money, making promises he never agreed to. The memory was a stark reminder of why he now guarded his life with such fierce anonymity. One Thursday, Alexandra showed up at the café looking worse than usual. She sat down heavily, rubbed her face, and ordered 2 shots of espresso instead of her usual black coffee. "Bad day?" Jonas asked. She laughed, but it sounded hollow. "Bad year," she corrected, leaning back in her chair. She looked at Jonas, her gaze searching, open. "My family thinks I do not have a life," she said. "They think all I do is work, and they are right. But the second I try to do something for myself, they have opinions about it." Jonas closed his book, giving her his full attention. "What kind of opinions?" he asked. "The kind that come with conditions," Alexandra said, a weariness in her voice that Jonas deeply recognized. "Do you have family like that?" Jonas thought of his own fractured past. "I do not have much family left," he replied, his voice soft. "But I remember what it is like to be controlled by people who think they know better." Alexandra nodded slowly. "I wish I could just disappear sometimes, just be no one." Jonas understood that more than she knew. Their conversations had deepened, becoming a quiet anchor in Alexandra's tumultuous life. He made her feel seen, truly seen, for the first time in years. Weeks turned into months, and their cafe meetings became a cherished ritual. Alexandra started smiling more, a genuine, unburdened smile that reached her eyes. Jonas found himself looking forward to Tuesdays and Thursdays in a way he had not looked forward to anything in a long time. It was not love yet, but it was something fragile and real. Then, one Thursday, Alexandra did not show up. Jonas waited for an hour, telling himself it did not matter, that people had lives. But the next Tuesday, she was not there either. For the first time in months, the quiet hum of the cafe pressed down on him with a heavy silence. On Thursday, she finally walked in. She looked different, polished. Her hair was styled. She wore a blazer that spoke of importance and authority. She sat down across from him and set a cream-colored envelope on the table. "I need to ask you something," Alexandra said, her voice steady, but her hands were not. "And you can say no. I will understand if you do." Jonas looked at the elegant, heavy paper. "What is it?" he asked. "My sister, Clarissa, is getting married," Alexandra said, her gaze dropping to her coffee cup. "It is in 2 weeks. It is a big event. My whole family will be there, and I do not want to go alone." Jonas frowned. "You want me to come with you?" he asked, trying to process the request. "I know it is a lot to ask," Alexandra said quickly, her words tumbling out. "I know we do not really know each other that well, but I feel like I can breathe when I am around you, and I do not feel that way around anyone else, especially not at events like this." Jonas picked up the envelope. The paper was heavy, expensive, the kind of thing that probably cost more than his monthly rent. "What kind of event are we talking about?" he asked. Alexandra looked down again. "The kind where people judge you based on your last name and your net worth. The kind where I have to smile and pretend I am not being suffocated." Jonas slowly set the envelope back down. "Why me?" he asked. "Because you do not care about any of that," Alexandra said, her eyes meeting his. "Because you see me not the version of me everyone else expects." Jonas thought about his daughter, Louisa, about the quiet life he had built, about the fact that he had spent years avoiding rooms full of people who thought they were better than him. But he also thought about Alexandra, the woman who came to a tiny cafe just to sit in silence, the woman who looked at him like he was worth knowing. He took a breath. "Okay," Jonas said. Alexandra blinked, her expression shifting from relief to gratitude, and something else Jonas could not quite place. Fear, maybe. "You do not have to dress up or anything," she said quickly. "Just be yourself. That is all I need." Jonas nodded, but even as he agreed, he felt the weight of what he was walking into. He had been to events like this before, a long time ago in a different life, and he knew exactly how people like Alexandra's family would look at someone like him. The next week, Alexandra sent him a message. It was the first time she had ever contacted him outside their cafe meetings. The message was short. "Thank you for doing this. I know it is going to be uncomfortable, but I am glad you will be there." Jonas stared at the message for a long time before replying simply, "I will be there." 3 days before the wedding, Alexandra's sister, Clarissa, sent her a message. Alexandra showed it to Jonas the next time they met at the café. It was polite, carefully worded, but underneath the politeness was something sharp. Looking forward to meeting your guest. I took the liberty of sending over a few wardrobe suggestions, just so he feels comfortable. You know how formal these things can be. Attached were links to designer suits. Each one cost more than Jonas made in a month. Alexandra's jaw was tight when she handed him her phone. She is testing you, Jonas said quietly. She is testing both of us, Alexandra replied, her frustration evident. She looked at him, her eyes pleading. You do not have to wear any of that. I do not care what you wear. But then she sighed. But she does. Jonas handed the phone back to her. I will wear what I always wear, he said, his voice calm but firm. If that is a problem for her, she can take it up with you. Alexandra smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. They are going to judge you, she warned. I know, Jonas replied. They are going to make you feel like you do not belong. I know that too. Alexandra looked at him for a long moment. Then why are you still coming? Jonas thought about it. He thought about the café, about the way Alexandra's shoulders relaxed when she sat across from him, about the fact that she had trusted him with something real. Because you asked, he said simply. And that was the truth. It was not about the wedding. It was not about her family. It was about the woman who had found him in a quiet corner of the world and decided he was worth knowing. The morning of the wedding, Jonas put on his simple gray suit. It was clean, it fit well enough, but it was not expensive. It did not have a designer label, it was just a suit. He looked at himself in the mirror and saw exactly what Alexandra's family would see, a man who did not belong in their world. But he went anyway. Alexandra picked him up in a car that cost more than his small house. She looked beautiful. Her dress was simple but elegant, dark blue and understated. She smiled when she saw him, but there was a palpable tension in her eyes. You look great, she said. Jonas got in the car. You look nervous. I am, Alexandra admitted. They did not talk much on the drive. The wedding was at a private estate an hour outside the city, the kind of place that required an invitation just to get through the gate. When they arrived, Jonas saw exactly what he had expected. Valet parking attendants in white gloves, marble fountains, a ballroom that could comfortably fit 200 people. Alexandra took his arm as they walked in. People turned to look immediately. Jonas felt their eyes on him, heard the whispers, saw the glances. A man in a cheap suit, a woman worth millions. It did not add up, and everyone knew it. Alexandra's grip on his arm tightened. Ignore them, she murmured. I am, Jonas said, but he was not. He saw every look, felt every judgment, and he knew, long before the ceremony even started, that this night was going to cost him more than he had expected. They found their seats near the front. Alexandra's mother, Rosalind Sterling, glanced at Jonas once, her expression carefully neutral. Her sister, Clarissa, smiled at them from across the room, but it was the kind of smile that did not mean anything, and the groom, Clement Sterling, did not even look their way, not yet. The ceremony began. The officiant spoke. The bride and groom exchanged vows, and Jonas sat quietly beside Alexandra, feeling the weight of a world that had never been his and never would be. Then Clement turned to kiss his bride, and everything stopped. Clement froze mid-motion. His lips hovered an inch from Clarissa's, but he was not looking at her anymore. He was looking past her shoulder, past the officiant, past the rows of guests in their designer clothes and practiced smiles. He was looking directly at Jonas. The color drained from his face. Clarissa noticed first. Her smile faltered. She touched his arm, confused. But Clement did not respond. He just stared, and then slowly he released her hands. The officiant cleared his throat. You may now. But Clement was already walking down the steps of the altar, past the front row where Rosalind Sterling sat, frozen in shock, past the bridesmaids, who exchanged nervous glances. He walked straight toward Jonas. The ballroom went silent. Jonas did not move. He sat perfectly still, his expression unreadable as Clement stopped in front of him. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Clement dropped his head. Sir, he said quietly. The word cut through the silence like a blade. Alexandra's hand tightened on Jonas's arm. She looked at Clement, then at Jonas, trying to understand what was happening. But Clement was not done. You saved my company, Clement said, his voice shaking with emotion. 3 years ago, when I was about to lose everything, when every investor had walked away and the banks would not touch me, you were the only one who believed in me. You gave me a second chance. The room erupted in whispers. Clement straightened, his eyes wet with unshed tears. If it were not for you, I would not be standing here today. I would not have any of this. I owe you everything. Jonas said nothing. He just looked at Clement with the same calm, measured expression he always had. But inside, something was collapsing. Alexandra turned to him, her face pale with shock. Jonas? Clement looked around the room, addressing everyone. Now, this man is J. Vale. Some of you have heard the name. Most of you have spent years trying to find him. He is the investor who has funded half the startups in this city, the one who turned no names into empires. And he did it all without ever asking for credit. The whispers turned into a roar. People stood. Phones came out. Rosalind Sterling covered her mouth in stunned silence. Clarissa stood frozen at the altar, her bouquet hanging limp in her hands. Alexandra's voice was barely a whisper. J. Vale? Jonas finally moved. He stood slowly, his hand slipping out of Alexandra's grip. He looked at Clement with something close to exhaustion. This was not supposed to happen. Clement shook his head. I know. I know you do not want attention, but I could not let you sit here and be treated like you do not matter. Not after everything you have done. Jonas's jaw tightened. He glanced at Alexandra. She was staring at him like she had never seen him before, like he was a stranger. We should go, Jonas said quietly. But before he could move, Rosalind Sterling was there. She crossed the ballroom in seconds, her heels clicking against the marble floor. She reached for Jonas's hand, her expression transformed into something warm and desperate. Mr. Stopper. Vale, she said breathlessly. I had no idea, if I had known, if any of us had known. Jonas pulled his hand back gently. You did not need to know. But we do now, Rosalind said, smiling too wide, and we are so honored to have you here. Please stay for the reception. We would love to talk more. There are so many people here who would benefit from meeting you. Jonas looked at her, really looked at her, and he saw exactly what he had always known would happen. The shift, the recalculation, the sudden interest in a man they had ignored 10 minutes ago. No, he said simply. Rosalind blinked. I am sorry? I said, no. Jonas's voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. I am not staying, and I am not interested in being introduced to anyone. He turned to Alexandra. She was still staring at him, her face a mixture of shock and hurt. We need to talk. Alexandra did not move. You, J. Vale? She asked, her voice tight. The J. Vale? The one everyone has been trying to find for years? Yes, Jonas replied. Her voice cracked. Why did you not tell me? Jonas looked around the ballroom. Everyone was watching. Everyone was listening. He could feel the weight of their attention pressing down on him like a physical thing. Not here, he said softly. But Alexandra was not done. How long were you planning to keep this from me? I was not keeping it from you, Jonas said. I was keeping it from this. He gestured at the room, at the people who were already pulling out business cards, at Rosalind Sterling, who was still hovering nearby with that desperate smile. This is why I left that world. This is why I do not tell people who I am. Alexandra's eyes were wet now. But I am not them. I am not. She stopped, swallowed hard. I thought we were honest with each other. Jonas felt something crack inside him. We were. No, Alexandra said, her voice shaking with raw emotion. We were not. I told you everything. I told you about my family, about how suffocating my life is, about how I cannot trust anyone because everyone wants something from me. And you just sat there and let me talk. You let me think you were different. I am different, Jonas insisted. Are you? Alexandra looked at him, truly looked at him, her gaze piercing. Because right now you feel like everyone else, just another person with secrets. Jonas opened his mouth to respond, but Clarissa Sterling was suddenly there, her wedding dress rustling as she moved. She looked between Alexandra and Jonas, her expression tight with anger. Can we not do this right now? This is my wedding. Alexandra turned on her sister, her own anger boiling over. Your wedding? Your wedding? Where you and Mom spent the last 2 weeks making sure I knew Jonas was not good enough? Where you sent me links to $1,000 suits because you were embarrassed by him? Clarissa's face flushed crimson. I was trying to help, she exclaimed. You were trying to control me, Alexandra said, her voice rising, like you always do, like Mom always does. And I let you because I thought. She stopped, looked at Jonas, her voice breaking. I thought at least one person in my life was not lying to me. Jonas felt the words land like physical blows. I never lied. You did not tell the truth either, Alexandra retorted, her voice full of pain. The ballroom was still watching, still listening. Jonas could see phones recording, could see people leaning in to catch every word. He had spent years avoiding this exact moment, and now it was happening anyway. He took a breath. You are right. I should have told you, but I did not know how to do it without this happening. He gestured at the crowd, without becoming a transaction. Alexandra's expression shifted. For a second, he thought he saw understanding, but then she shook her head. You did not trust me. That is not. You did not trust me, she repeated, her voice breaking. You thought I would treat you differently if I knew. You thought I would want something from you. Jonas did not answer, because she was right. That was exactly what he had thought. Alexandra stepped back. I need some air. She walked away. Jonas watched her go, feeling the weight of every eye in the room on his back. Clarissa glared at him, then hurried after her sister. Rosalind Sterling stood frozen, clearly unsure whether to comfort her daughter or chase after the billionaire investor who had just been exposed. Clement Sterling approached slowly, his face etched with regret. I am sorry. I did not mean to. Jonas held up a hand. It is not your fault. I just wanted them to know, Clement said quietly. I wanted them to see who you really are. Jonas looked at him. They do not see who I am. They see what I can do for them. There is a difference. He turned and walked out of the ballroom. No one tried to stop him, but he could feel them watching. He could feel the shift in the room. He was not Jonas anymore. He was Jay Vale. And that name came with expectations he had spent 12 years trying to escape. Outside, the night air was cold. Jonas found a bench near the fountain and sat down. He could hear the murmur of the reception starting up again inside. Could hear music, laughter, people pretending nothing had happened. He pulled out his phone, no messages. He did not expect any. Alexandra was probably somewhere inside, trying to process what she had just learned, and he did not blame her for being angry. He had known this would happen eventually. He just had not expected it to hurt this much. Footsteps approached. Jonas looked up. It was Rosalind Sterling. She sat down beside him without asking, smoothing her dress carefully. That was quite a scene, she said lightly. Jonas did not respond. She tried a different approach. I want to apologize for the way we treated you. If we had known, you would have treated me differently, Jonas finished for her. I know. Rosalind smiled, but it was tight. You cannot blame us for that. You have to understand. We had no idea who you were. And that is the problem, Jonas said quietly. He looked at her, his gaze unwavering. I am the same person I was an hour ago. The only thing that changed is what you think I am worth. Her smile faltered. That is not fair, is it? Jonas stood. Your daughter sent me links to designer suits because she thought I would embarrass her. You looked at me like I was a stain on your family's reputation, and now you are sitting here apologizing because you found out I have money. Tell me how that is fair. Rosalind Sterling opened her mouth, then closed it. She had no answer. Jonas walked back toward the building. He needed to find Alexandra, needed to explain, needed to fix this before it broke completely. But when he reached the ballroom, he saw her standing near the bar with Clarissa. They were talking in low, urgent voices. Alexandra's face was red, her eyes still wet. Clarissa was gesturing wildly. Jonas approached slowly. Clarissa saw him first. Her expression hardened. I think you have done enough damage for one night. Jonas ignored her. I need to talk to Alexandra. Clarissa stepped in front of her sister. She does not want to talk to you. Let her tell me that, Jonas insisted. Alexandra turned. Her eyes were still wet, but her voice was steady. She is right. I do not want to talk to you. Not right now. Jonas felt the words hit him with a dull thud. Alexandra, you made me feel like an idiot, she said quietly, her voice trembling. I stood up for you. I told my family you were different. that you did not care about money or status, and the whole time you were exactly what they are, just better at hiding it. That is not true, is it? Alexandra's voice rose, laced with pain. You have more money than my entire family combined. You are one of the most powerful investors in the country, and you let me sit there and complain about my life like you could not relate, like you did not understand what it is like to be judged for your net worth. Jonas shook his head, desperation creeping into his voice. I do understand. That is why I did not tell you, because the second people know, that is all they see. I did not want you to see me that way. So you lied, Alexandra accused, her voice bitter. I did not lie. I just did not tell you everything. Alexandra laughed, a harsh, broken sound. That is the same thing, Jonas, and you know it. Clarissa put a hand on Alexandra's shoulder. Come on, let us go fix your makeup. You should not have to deal with this tonight. But Alexandra did not move. She just looked at Jonas, her eyes filled with a raw, profound hurt. I thought you were safe. I thought you were the one person in my life who wanted me for me. Not for my name, not for my money, just me. I do want you, Jonas said, his voice pleading. That is why I am here. No, Alexandra said, her voice firm. You are here because I asked, and you said yes because you felt sorry for me, because you thought you were doing me a favor. That is not. I need you to leave, Alexandra said, her voice quiet but final. I need you to leave and let me figure out what is real and what is not. Jonas stared at her. He wanted to argue, wanted to explain, but he could see the wall she had built between them. He could see the hurt in her eyes, and he knew that anything he said right now would only make it worse. So, he nodded. Okay. He turned and walked out, past the guests who were still whispering, past Clement Sterling, who looked like he wanted to apologize again, past Rosalind Sterling, who was now surrounded by people asking about Jay Vale. Jonas did not stop. He walked straight to the valet, got his keys, and drove away. The city lights blurred as he drove. He did not go home. He could not. Instead, he drove to Brew and Page's. The cafe was closed, but he parked outside anyway and sat in the dark. This was where it had started. Where he had been, just Jonas. Where Alexandra had been, just Alexandra. He pulled out his phone and stared at her contact. He wanted to send a message, wanted to tell her that he had not meant to hurt her, that he had been trying to protect what they had. But he knew she would not read it, not tonight. So he sat there alone in the place where they had built something real and wondered if it was already gone. Inside the ballroom, the reception continued. Alexandra stood near the windows, a glass of champagne in her hand that she had not touched. Clarissa had gone back to Clement. Rosalind Sterling was holding court with a group of investors, all of them suddenly very interested in the Sterling family now that they knew Jonas's connection to Alexandra. Alexandra watched them, watched the way they smiled and laughed, and pretended the scene from earlier had not happened. And she realized Jonas had been right. This was exactly what he had been trying to avoid. The shift, the recalculation, the sudden interest. But that did not make it hurt less. She pulled out her phone and opened her messages. Jonas's name was at the top. She typed and deleted 3 different messages before finally putting the phone away. She did not know what to say. Did not know how to reconcile the man she had known with the man everyone else saw. Rosalind approached, her expression carefully sympathetic. Sweetheart, are you all right? Alexandra looked at her mother. When were you going to tell me you knew who he was? Rosalind blinked, caught off guard. I did not know. But you do now, Alexandra retorted, and you are already working the room, already figuring out how to use this. Rosalind's expression tightened. That is not fair, is it? Alexandra set down her glass. You spent 2 weeks telling me Jonas was not good enough. And now you are acting like he is the best thing that ever happened to this family. I made a mistake, Rosalind said, her voice softening. I judged him too quickly. But now that we know, now that you know he is rich, you mean? Alexandra's jaw tightened. You are being dramatic. Am I? Alexandra looked around the ballroom at the people who were still whispering, still watching. Everyone in this room is doing the same thing. They are all recalculating, all figuring out what Jonas is worth to them, and that is exactly what he was afraid of. Rosalind softened her tone. Then why did he not just tell you? Alexandra did not have an answer for that, because the truth was, she did not know, and that was the part that hurt the most. She walked out onto the terrace. The night air was cold, but she needed it. Needed to clear her head. She thought about Jonas, about the way he had looked at her in the café, the way he had listened when she talked, the way he had agreed to come to this wedding, even though he knew what would happen. And she thought about the fact that he had kept a secret that changed everything. Her phone buzzed. She pulled it out, hoping it was Jonas, but it was just Clarissa. "Are you okay?" Alexandra typed back, "I do not know." She put the phone away and leaned against the railing. Behind her, the reception continued. The music played, people danced, and Alexandra stood alone, caught between the man she had thought she knew and the truth she could not ignore. Jonas sat in his car outside Brew and Page's for 2 hours. The cafe was dark, the street was empty. He watched the building and thought about walking away. Just getting in the car and driving until none of this mattered anymore. But he could not, because somewhere across the city, Alexandra was trying to make sense of something he should have explained weeks ago. His phone buzzed. Not Alexandra, just a notification. He ignored it. Then it buzzed again and again. He looked down. Messages from numbers he did not recognize. Investors, entrepreneurs, people who had somehow gotten his contact information in the last 2 hours. All of them wanted meetings, wanted his time, wanted a piece of what Vale could offer them. He turned the phone off. Then he started driving. The Sterling estate was still lit up when he arrived. Cars were leaving. The reception was winding down. Jonas parked near the fountain and walked back inside. A few guests glanced at him, but no one stopped him. He was not invisible anymore, but he was not a spectacle either. He was just a man looking for someone. He found Alexandra on the terrace. She was alone, her arms wrapped around herself against the cold. She did not turn when he approached, but he knew she heard him. "I thought you left," she said quietly. Jonas stopped a few feet away. "I did, but I came back." Alexandra finally looked at him. Her makeup was smudged. Her eyes were red. "Why?" she asked. "Because you deserve an explanation, a real one." She did not respond, just waited. Jonas took a breath. 12 years ago, I was a different person. I had money. I had influence. I had everything people told me I was supposed to want, and I had a wife who loved all of it. Alexandra's expression shifted slightly. Jonas continued talking, his voice soft, almost a confession. "She loved the parties, the connections, the power. And I gave her all of it because I thought that is what love was supposed to look like. But then we had a daughter, Louisa, and suddenly none of that mattered to me anymore. I wanted quiet. I wanted time. I wanted to be a father, not a bank account." He looked down, remembering the bitter arguments. My wife, Amanda, did not see it that way. She wanted more. More events, more influence, more everything. And when I tried to pull back, she started making decisions without me, using my name to open doors, my money to build her own empire. I found out she had been taking meetings with people I had turned down, making promises I never agreed to. Alexandra was listening now, truly listening, her gaze fixed on him. "When I confronted her, she told me I was being selfish," Jonas continued, his voice heavy with the memory. "That I owed it to her to use what I had. That my daughter deserved to grow up in that world. But I looked at my daughter, and all I saw was a future where she would be valued for what she could give people, not who she was." He met Alexandra's eyes, the pain of his past laid bare. "So, I left. I walked away from everything, changed my name, moved to a different city. I kept investing because it is what I am good at, but I did it anonymously. I became Vale so I could stop being the person everyone wanted something from. And I raised my daughter in a house where no one knew who we were." Alexandra's voice was barely a whisper. "Where is she now?" "Your wife. She remarried 2 years after the divorce," Jonas said. "Someone with more money and more ambition. Last I heard, she is happy. And my daughter spends weekends with me and weekdays with her. It is not perfect, but it is better than what we had." Alexandra wiped her eyes, a gesture of understanding. "Why did you not tell me any of this?" Jonas stepped closer, reaching out tentatively. "Because the first time I saw you walk into that cafe, I saw someone who was exhausted from being treated like a commodity, and I knew exactly how that felt. I did not want to be another person in your life who came with complications. I just wanted to be Jonas, the guy who read books and drank bad coffee and listened when you talked." "But you are not just Jonas," Alexandra said, her voice filled with a new kind of pain. "You are Jay Vale, and that is not a small thing to hide. I know." Jonas's voice cracked. "I know I should have told you, but I did not know how to do it without becoming someone different in your eyes. And I was terrified that if you knew, you would start treating me the way everyone else does, like I am a resource instead of a person." Alexandra looked at him for a long moment, tears welling again. "I am not them. I know that now," Jonas said, his voice soft. "But I have spent 12 years being burned by people who said the same thing. My wife said she loved me, but what she really loved was what I could give her, and I could not risk that happening again. Especially not with you." Alexandra turned away, the hurt still raw. "You did not trust me." "I did not trust myself," Jonas said quietly. "I did not trust my own judgment anymore because I had been wrong before, and it cost me everything." Alexandra was silent, the music from inside drifting out through the open doors, a slow song, something elegant and empty. "Do you know what the worst part is?" Alexandra said finally, turning back to him. "It is not that you kept a secret, it is that you were right. You were right about my family. You were right about how they would react, and you were right that I would feel differently once I knew." Jonas felt something cold settle in his chest. "So that is it. We are done." "I did not say that," Alexandra replied, her voice firm. "Then what are you saying?" She took a breath, steeling herself. "I am saying I need to figure out what is real because right now I do not know if I am hurt because you lied or because I am realizing how similar we are. Both of us hiding from the world. Both of us pretending to be smaller than we are just so people will leave us alone." Jonas did not have an answer for that. Alexandra looked back toward the ballroom. "My mother is in there right now, probably planning how to leverage your presence at this wedding. My sister is upset because her big day got overshadowed, and everyone else is just trying to figure out how to get close to you. That is my family, that is my world, and I hate it." She looked at him, her eyes fierce. "But I hate that you did not trust me more." Jonas felt the weight of her words. "What do you want me to do?" Alexandra's phone buzzed. She pulled it out and glanced at the screen. Her expression hardened. She held it up so Jonas could see. It was a message from Rosalind Sterling. "We need to talk about Jonas. There are opportunities here we cannot ignore." Alexandra stared at the message, then turned the phone off and put it in her purse. "I need to go," she said. "Where?" Jonas asked. "Anywhere that is not here." Jonas watched her walk toward the parking lot. He followed. "Alexandra." She stopped and turned. "Come with me." "Where are we going?" he asked. "Does it matter?" Alexandra replied. Jonas looked back at the ballroom, at the lights, at the world that had just swallowed them both. Then he looked at Alexandra, at the woman who had walked into a café looking for peace and found him instead. "No," he said, "it does not." They got in her car. Alexandra drove without speaking, her hands tight on the wheel. Jonas did not ask where they were going. He just watched the city pass by. The lights, the buildings, the world that kept spinning no matter how much everything had just changed. Alexandra pulled into a parking lot. Jonas looked up. It was Brew and Page's. The cafe was still dark, but Alexandra parked in front of it anyway. She turned off the engine and sat there. "This is where it started," she said quietly. Jonas nodded. "Yeah. Do you remember the first thing you said to me?" Alexandra asked. Jonas thought back. "I said, 'The world is too loud.'" Alexandra smiled faintly. "And I thought you were the only person who understood." She looked at him. "I still think that, even after tonight, even after everything." Jonas felt something loosen in his chest. "I am sorry I did not tell you. I am sorry I made you feel like you could not trust me. I know you are." Alexandra looked out at the dark cafe. "But I need you to understand something. I do not care that you are Jay Vale. I do not care about the money or the power or any of it. What I care about is that you thought you had to hide it from me because that means you did not think I would love you anyway." Jonas reached for her hand, his fingers intertwining with hers. "I was wrong." "Yeah," Alexandra said softly. "You were." They sat in silence for a while, the quiet of the parking lot enveloping them. Then Alexandra's phone buzzed again. She pulled it out. Another message from Rosalind. She stared at it. "What does it say?" Jonas asked. Alexandra read it aloud, her voice flat. "Where are you? People are asking about you and about Jonas." This could be very good for the family if we handle it right. Jonas felt anger rise in his chest. You do not have to answer that. Alexandra looked at him. I know. She typed something quickly and hit send. Then she turned the phone off completely. What did you say? Jonas asked, surprised. Alexandra smiled, a glint of defiance in her eyes. I told her that if she does not publicly apologize to you for how she treated you tonight, I am done with all of it. The family business, the events, the expectations, all of it. Jonas stared at her, stunned. You did not have to do that. Yes, I did. Alexandra's voice was firm. Because you were right. The only thing that changed tonight was what they think you are worth. And I am not going to be part of a family that treats people like transactions. Jonas felt something break open inside him, a wall coming down. What if she does not apologize? Alexandra looked at him, her gaze unwavering. Then I walk away, just like you did. You would really do that, for me? Jonas asked, disbelieving. Alexandra reached for his hand, squeezing it. Yes. Jonas pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her. She pressed her face against his shoulder, her body trembling slightly. They stayed like that for a long time, sitting in the dark parking lot outside the café where they had first found each other. I do not want to go back to that world, Jonas said quietly. The one where everyone knows my name and wants something from me. Then do not, Alexandra said, her voice muffled against his suit. We will figure it out together. Jonas pulled back and looked at her, a profound sense of hope dawning within him. What about your family? What about them? Alexandra smiled, a genuine, unburdened smile. They have spent my whole life telling me how to live. Maybe it is time I stopped listening. Jonas kissed her, soft and slow. And for the first time since Clement Sterling had called him sir in front of 200 people, Jonas felt like he could breathe. When they pulled apart, Alexandra rested her forehead against his. I need you to promise me something. Anything. No more secrets. No more hiding. I do not care how uncomfortable the truth is. I need to know I can trust you. Jonas nodded, his heart full. I promise. Good. Alexandra sat back and started the car. Now, let us go home. Your place or mine? Alexandra smiled, a playful glint in her eyes. Mine. Your apartment is probably surrounded by investors by now. Jonas laughed, a deep, genuine sound that felt good, like something loosening after being wound too tight for too long. They drove through the quiet streets. The city looked different now, softer, less hostile. Jonas looked at Alexandra, at the woman who had chosen him over her family, over the world that had raised her, and he realized something profound. He had spent 12 years hiding from the person he used to be. But maybe he did not have to hide anymore. Not if he had someone who saw him, all of him, and stayed anyway. 2 weeks later, Jonas and Alexandra sat in their usual corner of brew and pages. The cafe was open again. The morning light filtered through the windows, casting a warm glow. Alexandra had her laptop open, but she was not working. Jonas had a book in his hands, but he was not reading. They were just sitting, existing, the way they always had. Alexandra's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and smiled. My mother wants to have lunch. Are you going to go? Jonas asked. Alexandra thought about it. Maybe. She did apologize publicly. At Clarissa's reception? Jonas raised an eyebrow, curious. How did that go? Awkward, but necessary. Alexandra took a sip of her coffee. She told everyone she had misjudged you, that she was sorry for treating you like you did not belong, and that she hoped they would all learn from her mistake. Jonas smiled, a hint of amusement in his eyes. That must have killed her, probably. Alexandra reached for his hand across the table, her fingers intertwining with his. But she did it, so maybe there is hope. Jonas squeezed her hand gently, maybe. They sat in comfortable silence. Around them, the cafe filled with its usual morning crowd. Students, freelancers, people looking for a quiet place to work. No one looked at them, no one whispered. They were just two people sitting in a corner holding hands across a table, content in their shared reality. Jonas looked at Alexandra, at the woman who had walked into his life looking for peace and found him instead, and he realized something profound. He had been wrong about trust, about fear, about what it meant to be loved. Because Alexandra did not love him despite who he was. She loved him times because times of it, all of it. The quiet parts and the complicated parts. The past he had tried to leave behind and the future he was still figuring out. She had chosen him, not Jay Vale, not the money, not the power, just him. And that was worth more than anything he had ever built. Alexandra smiled at him, her eyes sparkling. "What are you thinking about?" Jonas smiled back, his gaze tender. "That I'm glad you forgot your charger that day." Alexandra laughed, a joyful, uninhibited sound. Best malfunction ever. They went back to their morning, coffee and books and comfortable silence. The world outside kept spinning. But inside Brew and Page's, time moved differently, slower, softer. And for the first time in 12 years, Jonas felt like he was exactly where he belonged.